All right, folks. Welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network. And I am, well, not excited. Excited is definitely the wrong word, but I am certainly here talking about this Denver Nuggets win, or loss, excuse me. Good Lord. As the Nuggets lose to the LA Clippers last night. Final score 111-102. Not the greatest. Certainly not the greatest performance of all time from Denver, and we'll get into why. It's an abnormal game that they had last night, and something that I'm not sure anybody was really expecting, but also something that I'm not sure people should really be taking too much stock into. We'll get into why over the course of this episode. If you are listening on the YouTube side, make sure to like and comment on the video. Comment how concerned you are about Nikola Jokic shooting 9 of 32 from the field. I'm curious to see what everybody else thinks. But for now, I think it's probably important to just be honest about what it was last night. It was pretty tough. It was a pretty tough game, and that's just fine. Everybody's going to be okay. And I am not super concerned. And if I'm not concerned, then you certainly should not be either. But we'll get into why, of course. But like I said, if you're on the audio side, make sure to like and comment. That would be super helpful. If you are on the YouTube side, make sure to like and comment. If you're on the audio side, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Helps us out tremendously over here. Absolutely important to continue to grow the show. All right, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about one of the weirdest shooting nights that we have ever seen before. Nikola Jokic, 37 minutes last night, 22 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, four turnovers, plus one in a game that the Nuggets lost by 9. So it can't be his fault, right? Can't be his fault because of the old plus minus. No, I wouldn't say that. I think that would be unfair. I think it's a pretty interesting place where Denver's at right now. Getting a little bit of lag here, so let me try to close out of some tabs to try to make sure that the stream is as live as possible, as good as quality as we can possibly get it to. But yeah, just a pretty tough place for Nikola Jokic to be. 9 of 32 from the field. It is the most missed shots that Nikola Jokic has ever had. And that to me is a pretty stark stat, of course. He has never been a missed shot guy. He's never been somebody who takes too many shots. Whenever he takes this number of shots, he usually gets the percentages back around. The worst we've ever really seen it was in game 5 of the Minnesota Timberwolves series, where I think he was 8 of 29, 9 of 28, one of those two. And in that game, he was doing everything else. He was being very involved. He was very good. And kind of surprising the way that things have gone. Kind of surprising that against the Clippers of all teams, it feels like he is overwhelmed in a number of categories. How weird is that? Man, we're getting so much lag here. Sorry about that, everybody. Let me try to lower the camera resolution quality just a little bit, just so we can try to get that at least a little bit more live. There we go. It's one of the worst shooting performances we've ever seen from Nikola Jokic, and I don't have a ton of analysis for it. Let me just be clear. Nikola Jokic is never going to shoot like that again this season. He's just not. That's a very rare thing for him to do. He's missing shots that he normally makes. I'm not sure what the reason for it was. There were a couple of plays where the Clippers were being like they were playing good defense, whether it was Ivica Zubac or if it was Daniel Tice. Both of those guys I thought played good defense against Nikola last night, but there were still plenty of shots in the floater zone, shots around the rim, shots that Nikola Jokic generally makes, wide open threes, jump shots in rhythm, like in the mid range. It was a little bit of everything. It really was. And kind of a surprising number. Obviously, 9 of 32 is just it's one of the worst shooting performances we've seen in a while. Um, like in the entire NBA. So very weird, obviously. Definitely not something that I think can be really evaluated too strongly. But given how abnormal it was, given how drastic of a shooting performance this was, I am hesitant to take it as like oh yeah, this is actually going to happen in the playoffs. This is actually going to happen in a matchup against the Clippers. I don't think so because we've seen Nikola Jokic dominate the Clippers before. We've seen what it looks like when he goes full ham against this particular team and plays great on that end. Now, he had an 8 of 23 game against the Clippers earlier in the season. And I think both of his worst shooting performances of the year have now come against the Clippers. So maybe there is something to the way Ivica Zubac and now Daniel Tice are defending him. Now, Tice wasn't around for that first matchup, but still interesting. Still interesting to think about. And I wonder if Denver could set him up a little bit better. I wonder if there are things that they did last night that didn't really translate to good shots for Jokic. I don't think so. Like Jamal Murray was back, and I thought he did a pretty good job of setting him up in the pick and roll in the middle of the floor. And the Clippers were just willing to live with that. They didn't want to allow Jokic to be the passer. They wanted him to be the scorer, and he tried to score, and he just couldn't. He just couldn't last night. So, look, if he shoots a normal percentage, Denver wins. That's probably where this boils down to. Obviously, for the win and loss factor. Um, Pretty interesting to see why, pretty interesting to see what happened here and kind of how that has been handled. But look, I'm not going to be too concerned. I think it's most important for Denver. It's most important for the Nuggets that they just move on from this one. That they this is the third time that they've played the Clippers. It will be the fourth time that they've played Houston. Denver needs to get out of this stretch and they need to start playing some other teams. They need to start playing some easier teams, frankly, because the Clippers are the fourth best defense in the NBA, or at least statistically. And I'm sure that they may have moved up after this game. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Um, and so it's I think if you're a Nuggets fan, it's just frustrating to have to look at this one and think, okay, we have to have a different evaluation for this. Um, I'm not concerned. I'm not. I refuse to be concerned. Nikola Jokic is still the best player in the NBA. He's still the guy that you want in the playoffs. He's still the guy that even shooting wise, he's going to make those shots because he's made them all before. I am not super concerned, and I don't think Nuggets fans should be either. Couple questions here. JK Walrus asks, "Hey Ryan, I was curious what your thoughts were on the reasons behind AG's offensive regression this season. Anecdotally, seems like he's way less involved and subsequently forcing his offense." Yeah, there were a couple of possessions last night where clearly forcing a pull up two, and he had a bank shot that went in on the baseline. I think it was over Russell Westbrook, if I'm not mistaken, but it might have been Terrence Mann. And then he also just had a pull up jumper where whoever was guarding him, I think it was Russell Westbrook actually, just sagged off and gave him a ton of space for a mid range two. And Gordon took it and missed it. And to me, that's not surprising in any way, shape, or form because Gordon has not shot the ball very well, just as a jump shooter at all. 4 of 9 last night. Gordon was 0 of 0 from the line, 0 of 0 from the 3-point line. Yeah, I mean, last night was so weird from a shot distribution standpoint that I don't necessarily want to use that one as evidence for why Gordon is struggling or how Gordon is struggling. Just because Joker sort of he hijacked the offense in a lot of ways. Joker did and decided I'm going to run 2-man game. I'm going to run post ups. I'm going to run isolations here. And this was the one time in his career that I think he's really done that. Pretty odd to say for sure. Um, but yeah, Gordon, I mean, we still need to see him over a prolonged period of time. I don't want to Like I've already ragged on Gordon enough. I give him a C in the season grades podcast that I did last, which everybody could check out if they want to. That one I think still bears fruit even after this one. Although I was happy that I gave Jokic an A in that one as opposed to an A plus because this is the kind of performance that bumps it down half a letter grade. So I uh I don't feel that bad there. Um I think in general AG is somebody that Nuggets fans are going to be frustrated with until about January when he really starts to lock in. He isn't locked in right now. There are some good things that he's doing on the defensive end, but offensively, he is staying out of the way. And I think that's part of what you're talking about here. The offense hasn't been good when he has been involved, so he's stayed out of the way. And now it feels like he's uninvolved. And the only times where he does get the opportunities are when he's forcing it. So look, or when Jokic is kind of creating something out of the short roll or off of cuts. It's I don't know. I still think that they need to figure that out. There's no doubt about it. They need to figure out Gordon's role because it hasn't been great. When we come back, we are going to chat about Jamal Murray's return as well as Michael Porter's shooting night and kind of what happened there, why the heck that didn't really translate into more shots. We will talk about that, of course. But first, everybody, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. You can win a trip to the biggest football game of the year this season, courtesy of Superbook. They will fly you and a friend to Las Vegas for February's championship game, and they'll also give you 2 nights to the game plus a 3-night hotel stay. All you got to do is place a $25 same game parlay between now and January 7th, and you will be entered to win into the competition. So wager and win a super trip with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. And we're back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate everybody that's hopping into the stream. If you can, it'd be awesome if you could rate, review, and subscribe. As I mentioned before, that would obviously help grow the program. And I know not a lot of people are wanting to tune in on this one just because this game kind of sucked and there was not a lot of fun behind it. And it is important to discuss it because we're supposed to discuss every game. Don't want to miss out on analysis points throughout the year, but I mean, come on. That was a rough one. I understand why people are pretty frustrated. Um, I surprisingly, as much as people call me the negative Nancy and Eeyore and whatnot, I'm not really that frustrated about it. Like this is just one of those games that you have to check out the window, in my opinion. And there are certain things that we could still look at, but especially as it pertains to Jokic, I am not concerned. Like that dude is going to be fine. It will be okay. All right, let's talk about Michael Porter next. There was a question here from Truth Teller. Why Malone didn't stagger MPJ with the second unit that lacked shooting? Also, Justin should play at least one half. I thought that Justin Holiday was going to play over Julian Strawther. I'm surprised that he didn't, frankly, and I think that Denver would have been better off had Justin Holiday played over Julian Strawther. Just because you get into these moments, and Strawther last night, I won't go into the details here. 0 points, 0 of 2 from the field, 0 of 2 from three, 13 minutes -9. Just not super involved and committed 4 fouls in 13 minutes. Like he just wasn't ready and he just wasn't effective in his time. And Denver's bench, not really effective at all. But let's talk about MPJ. Let's talk about why Malone doesn't stagger MPJ and other reasons and kind of just his night in general. Got off to a great start. Probably the most important thing. Um, 34 minutes, 18 points, 7 of 8 from the field, 4 or 5 from three. Three of those 3-pointers came in the first quarter alone, and he was very good. He was locked in, made some crazy shots. He also made some mid range shots and continues to be surprisingly a mid range sniper this year. Uh, Pulling his Kevin Durant arc, that's for sure. That dude is shooting a bunch of shots from like every zone. Actually, not a bunch of shots. Probably should be taking more shots. But he is making a bunch of shots, is really what I mean. He's been very good, and it is important for people to give proper credit there. I give him, I think, a B in the season grades last night or yesterday, and I mean, he's been just as good as that. Like, he has been perhaps better than that, if we're being honest in relation to expectations. Denver didn't get him any more shots, and they couldn't get him any more shots for some reason. Now, they could have. Again, when Nikola Jokic takes 32 shots, Jamal Murray takes 18 in his return. That's 50 right there. The rest of the starters have a combined 17, 21 shots to go around. Aaron Gordon took 9, Michael Porter took 8, KCP took 4. It's just not the right shot distribution at all. And I'm not sure what led Nikola Jokic to take so many. Um, he's done this thing before where he will just force it until it kind of makes it happen. But this one seemed even more stark for some reason. And Porter was iced out as a result. He didn't touch the ball in the second quarter and the fourth quarter, basically. Like, he got involved in the first quarter, he got involved in the third quarter, had a couple shots in the third, and kind of made up for the fact that he didn't really touch it in the second. But for whatever reason, Denver just went middle pick and roll, middle DHO, post up isolation for the entire fourth quarter with Jokic on the floor. And I don't understand that decision. I don't think that that is a great call by Nikola Jokic specifically. He runs the offense in a lot of ways. Now, Denver can change things around, they can influence some things. And if the coach decides to call something, then they'll listen. And I think for whatever reason, the coaching staff, they struggle a lot with maintaining the shot diet for Michael Porter when, like, after the first quarter. I don't know what it is. Porter averages a ton of points. He averages a high percentage in first quarter specifically this year. And for whatever reason, the Nuggets have not been able to sustain that. They don't look for him late in the game. Um, yeah, it's a frustrating one for sure. And I know that Nuggets fans are looking at this pretty consistently as a pretty stark reason for why Denver lost. Um, Porter just has to get more shots up. He's it's not his fault because he's not touching the ball. Like, I could probably count the touches that he had in the second quarter and the fourth quarter on one hand. And because of that, he is obviously like he's done a great job most of the year and most of his career, frankly, of avoiding looking like a shot chucker, especially over these last couple seasons. Denver could have used that shot chucking from him. Like, Jokic was the shot chucker tonight. He just was, or last night. And pretty odd to see it, obviously. And I think it runs pretty counterintuitively to the way that Denver likes to run their offense most of the time. So that's why I just want to throw this game out. That's why I'm just like, hey, I don't know how to handle it. Um, but yeah, Porter should probably stagger with the second unit a little bit more. Now, one of the things that happens when you see guys stagger with the second unit is their minutes go up and their responsibility goes up and their wear and tear goes up. And for a guy like Michael Porter, who has played every single game, who has been healthy, who has been good, who has been active and been helpful, it may not be the best thing in the world to add to that burden any more than you have to. Because, like we talked about, Denver's playing the long game. They know what they can get with Porter when he staggers with the second unit, and he has staggered at times this year. I mean, I've done all the rotation charts. I know that he has staggered at times. He didn't last night, and I think that's because Denver wanted to go with a full bench, and that full bench probably cost Denver the game, for being honest. Um, but yeah, it's interesting to see for Porter specifically. Like, they need his spacing in the starting unit. That's pretty clear. Jokic and Murray are able to operate in the middle of the floor because KCP's in the corner, Mike's in the corner or on the wing, and Gordon's hovering around the short corner and in the corner himself. Like those guys, the spacing is generally very good with the starting unit, and you need that in order to operate in the middle. Um, Now they also need it with the second unit. I understand that, but yeah, yeah. Look, truth teller, I know you're doing a lot of like. It is okay to call this a bad game, and it is okay to like. It was a bad game. It was a legitimately bad game for Jokic. I'm here to say that I am not concerned about it and that he is still the best player in the NBA. That hasn't changed at all. But we could call it what it was. Like it was horrible. And like it also was horrible process from Joker to not involve anybody else other than Murray and other than Reggie Jackson. So I think that that's a fair criticism this time. And I've probably had some unfair criticisms of Joker in the past. I don't think that this counts. Seemed like Joker was purposely rushing shots instead of running the offense. MPJ was on fire and they totally went away from him. It was very uncharacteristic of Joker, and Joker was obviously rattled. Absolutely. No, I think this is very fair. It's and actually this is a good comment from JK Walrus. Uh some Twilight Zone stuff. That's one of the reasons why I want to throw this game out. I just want to say, look, this game is not going to happen again. Like Joker's probably going to look at the film. He's probably going to like he probably felt it during the game last night as he was taking a bunch of shots, and he wanted to continue to go through with the process because that's what good players do. And he'll probably look at the box score and he's like, "Okay, crap, I need to get these guys involved." And oh, Mike went 7 of 8. I need to get him involved. And like he is that kind of player. He understands he's not selfish in any way. He just wants to win. And I know that he knows that keeping those guys involved will help Denver win more games. So it'll also help make his shots easier. So I, yeah, no, I think that this was a Twilight Zone game. Um, Mike has to get more shots. They have to be there. They will be better, and it's just interesting to see how that goes from here. Finally, Jamal Murray made his return last night, and he looked pretty good. I thought there were some plays where I was a little bit concerned about his burst, a little bit concerned about okay, some of the shots that he's trying to generate, especially with the second unit, were pretty bad. Um, and he needs to continue to have an aggressive mentality with that second unit. He has to be the scorer. He has to be the guy that hunts those shots. And he took 18 shots last night. I don't want to take that away from him. 18 shots in 29 minutes is a pretty high number. 23 points, 6 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 0 rebounds for him. Although Denver won actually they lost the rebounding battle, 51-46. When Murray is out there, I want him rebounding. Like I think that that's a good way for him to stay involved. It's a good way for the Nuggets, especially with the second unit, to stay involved. Denver gave up 9 offensive rebounds off the bench. Murray only staggered in the first half with that second unit. He played for like 4 minutes from the 12-minute mark to the 8-minute mark of the second quarter, and he was not good during those minutes, I'll say. Murray's got to get more rebounds. That's one of the things that you can expect from him going forward. He's got to be probably a 22, 7, and 5 guy. That's the expectations I would have for him going forward. 22 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. Like those should be the benchmarks. If he reaches those every game, then Denver's probably going to win a lot of them. 23 points and 6 assists, pretty good. Pretty good. He was probably good enough for Denver to win last night. I can't really blame much on him, but he also has to be better running the second unit if he's going to be out there. That's one thing that I will have some criticism for him. Like he has to be better operating in the middle of the floor, setting up teammates, putting them into positions to succeed. I know that Christian Brown airballed last night. I know that Peyton Watson's not shooting well. Denver's probably going to get another shooter out there because if Peyton Watson, DeAndre Jordan, and Christian Brown are on the floor, it's not great spacing. So Denver's got to be like Murray's got to be aggressive from the perimeter in those lineups, and he's got to be willing to take those shots. So we'll see whether he does. We'll see whether he pushes forward with that. All right, let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the bench a little bit, and we're going to talk about Friday's game just to revisit another Houston Rockets game But first, this message from Scout to Huff.
Hey, what's up? It's DeHuff. I love to have fun. So tune into my podcast, DeHuff Uncensored. I give unfiltered takes on Denver sports, crazy news from around the world. Plus, you never know which one of my characters is going to swing by. Well, I hope one of them's your mother. Oh, Connery, Mama is always here for you. What in the blue heck is going on here? So subscribe and get ready to laugh to DeHuff Uncensored anywhere you find podcasts. Follow me on social media at DeHuff Podcast.
All right, final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate all the love. Yeah, make sure to hit that like button down below. That really does help out all of our stuff. All right, what do we make of the bench? Reggie Jackson moves back to a six-man role and plays fine. 14 points, 4 of 10 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3 is a good number. 3 of 4 from the line is a good number. Those are good numbers. 3 assists, 2 turnovers, fine. Nothing too crazy there. Who else did what? Well, Peyton Watson had some good minutes. Didn't shoot the ball well, but he had 3 assists, only 1 turnover, had a steal and a block, had 3 rebounds. Probably needs to be more involved as a rebounder, but that's one area of growth for him. And he also is just on the ball defending a lot of the time in these lineups. So I'm not as concerned about him rebounding. It's got to come from some other guys. Christian Brown, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 4 of 6 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3. Not a big one, but it was an air ball in the left corner. That was a pretty ugly miss. Had a block. I thought his defense on Paul George was horrible. I thought that Christian really struggled in those moments and really struggled on the perimeter in this one. The Clippers were okay targeting him. They actually tried to switch Peyton Watson off and get Christian Brown on the ball defensively. And that is some stuff that I think they've got to figure out. Appreciate that, Ben Mac. Really appreciate that. Yeah, Christian's got to be better. Like he's just got to be better defensively, and this was a bad defensive game from him. I'm surprised that he even got to 16 minutes. Like Michael Malone, in those situations, will usually put back in KCP. Will usually put back in Michael Porter, somebody just who's going to provide a little bit more juice. Christian did not play that great. He did fill up rebounds a little bit, and he was the leading defensive rebounder on the team. That's good. Julian Strother, as I mentioned in the second segment, not good. Like that is a pivot point for Denver, and one where he's the 10th man in the rotation or 9th man in the rotation, and somebody that Denver is going to need to figure out. Like, are they going to play Justin Holiday in these minutes? Are they going to play Julian Strother in these minutes? Or are they going to cut it down to 9? And it wouldn't surprise me if they try to go back to Justin Holiday a little bit because Denver needs more stability with the group. They need somebody who is going to provide provide more consistent shooting for one thing, because Strother is as good of a shooter as we know he will be. He is currently, I think, shooting about 31%. So there is a learning curve there. And Justin Holiday has hit those shots so far this year. And it's something that I would be a little bit interested about if I were Denver. I'd be trying to figure that out. DeAndre Jordan, not good enough. 11 minutes, 2 of 6 from the field, 4 points, 5 rebounds. Only had 2 defensive rebounds. The offensive rebounds are whatever, because a lot of times he's just tipping the ball up off the glass and they're counting that as an offensive rebound. 2 defensive rebounds is just not good enough, especially when Daniel Tice, his primary defensive matchup, has 5 offensive rebounds. That's just not good. And Jordan can't be outworked in those situations. I know that he has won Denver some games, or at least one game, the Clippers game last time. But the minutes since then have not been good. They just haven't been. And I think it's fair to be honest about that. It's not just unfair criticism. This isn't something where I don't want to pile on DJ because his role is different than Zeke Naji's role. Zeke Naji, I expected to be good, and he wasn't. DeAndre, I didn't expect him to be a contributor this year, and he helped win Denver at least one game. So that's part of it, and he does get a pass for that. But as we kind of get some distance away from that game, I think Denver still needs to be at least open to the possibility that he's not the solution and that Zeke isn't the solution either. And the solution may not be on their roster. Uh, for those that didn't see it, I had an article on milehighsports.com that basically it was a mailbag, basically featured some trade targets that Denver could go after. Actually, let me just pull it up here real quick so people um, don't have to go there necessarily. I want to. Um, I don't want to have to get you away from the stream. Off the bench, there are three rim rollers that I'd target, or four. Jalen Smith, who they've had interest from before with the Indiana Pacers. He's probably not available, but they have Isaiah Jackson as another backup center option in Indiana. Problem is that Indiana is really good and they probably don't want to change that much. So I wouldn't expect them to move Jalen Smith. Day'Ron Sharp of the Brooklyn Nets has also been really good. Somebody who like he's probably not in their future plans, but he is at least good enough to be a stable backup center for a team, and he would be pretty solid. But he's probably not gettable. Jericho Sims of the New York Knicks, somebody who isn't playing right now because he's behind Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein. Both of those guys are obviously very good. Nuggets fans know how good those guys are. Jericho Sims, a draft pick that they had back a little bit ago, hasn't really been able to get off the bench this year for that reason. So I would consider trying to target him. I would consider trying to add somebody like him who is a vertical rim running threat. Jericho Sims competed in the dunk contest. Like he can get above the rim and give Denver some pick and roll savvy. He can also rebound the basketball. So like that would be something that I'd consider. And then the last name here, Omer Yurtseven of the Utah Jazz. He is currently starting for them over Walker Kessler for some reason. But I mean, Omer Yurtseven's not good enough to really make a drastic difference, but he's at least somebody that I'd at least consider if I were Denver. Big, tall, athletic, at least athletic enough that he can move a little bit, and he's got some touch above, like on these rim rolls. So that's something that I'd at least consider. But look, like Denver's not in a great position where they can really put a bunch of money towards backup center. It's not great. And one of the reasons why I don't usually talk about trade targets, especially for a backup center, is because Denver's just going to go with Aaron Gordon as the backup center in the playoffs. Now, there are some layers to that discussion. There's some layers to that. Like Jeff Green was a good, at least stable presence at the power forward spot in the minutes when Gordon didn't play, and Porter can move to that spot too. So there are some reasons to believe that Denver can survive when Gordon goes to the bench. But then who plays next to him off the bench is still a fair question. They need somebody else with size, and I'm not sure that's Peyton Watson. Peyton might need to play the three in some of those minutes, but it's going to be tough. And Denver could probably just use another body. I'm not sure whether that's a center. I'm not sure whether that's a power forward, but we're starting to see just how much Vlatko Chanchar is being missed after tearing his ACL. Um, Without Jeff Green, without Vlatko, and now with Zeke not necessarily in the rotation, you start to see Denver's depth just kind of crumble here. And maybe this is where you give Jay Huff a try. Maybe this is where you give Braxton Key a try. But at this stage, Denver's really struggling. They've been going to Christian Brown at power forward on occasion. They've been going to these very small lineups. I do think that Porter is a good option kind of in the power forward minutes that Gordon doesn't play. That's something of a playoff option, though, and Denver could use a regular season option. So I'd be looking at stuff. I think Denver is probably a little bit more in need of an upgrade than they were last year. Denver was fine last year. Ultimately, the Reggie Jackson and Thomas Bryant additions didn't help Denver last year in the playoffs. That wasn't a thing that they needed. This year, that might not be the case. This year, they might need somebody else. So we will see what happens. But I'm still worried about the bench, folks. Like, there's a lot of different guys that I think can step up. I think Murray needs to take more ownership of those second units when he's staggering. I think that they could probably play Murray and Jackson together and play one of the wings, whether it's Christian Brown or Julian Strother, probably Christian Brown. Um, but then you still have the front court issues. And if you're playing smaller in that backcourt with Murray and Jackson, then it leaves you more vulnerable to offensive rebounds. So I'm I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I do know that they have to do something. And there are some reasons to believe that they might be a little bit more aggressive on the trade market than I thought that they would be before. So we will see. Comment down below if you're interested. Comment down below what position you would try to fill if you were like the GM of the Nuggets, for example. Be like, okay, you're trying to get backup center, you're trying to get backup power forward. Is there another position you're trying to target? What would you do to try to help the Nuggets win a championship? All right, folks, I think that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast as always. I will be back probably after the Friday game. I know I'm going to do weekends with Swipa next weekend on Saturday or Sunday, but gonna see what happens over the course of this next couple of days. Kind of a weird time in the calendar where there's just not a ton of basketball to talk about for the Nuggets specifically, but should be okay. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Appreciate all the love and support. Hit that like button, that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.